Welcome in to this Halloween edition of the Friday Night 360 AZ preview show.
Woo!
I'm Haley Stasiak with our Symbol Monkey Jordan Ham. We are all dressed up for the holiday, clearly. I'm a fifth inning hot dog from Chase Field. If you watch the show, if you watched anything, you know the context of that. Jordan, what are you here?
I'm a Symbol Monkey.
He's giving me Wizard of Oz vibes too, though, like the flying monkeys with the whole get-up. So
fair warning, I wear this somewhat regularly, so it's not really a Halloween thing for me.
Extremely concerning there. We've got a really good show for you. It is the first week of the playoffs. We're going to have Chris McDonald, Basha head coach, Pat Nugent, Cienega head coach, and Cody Cameron of Arizona Varsity. We had him week one. We're bringing him back to talk playoff action. We're going to start things out here by doing a little unique thing. We're not just going to preview some playoff games this week. We're going to do a little segment we're calling State Your Case. We're going to take a look at some lower seeded teams here in the playoffs and discuss kind of what these teams may do, why we think that they may make a good playoff run.
Yeah, and so we're going to introduce this by kind of the person that will throw it to the other host is going to kind of state, hey, this is why this could be a tough road for them. This is what we've seen out of them, but why could they make a run? And a lot of it could just be high school football's weird. So do you want to start or do you want me to start?
We'll start out with this. Jordan's got number 7 Queen Creek. He says the number 7 seed, back-to-back losses. In this last half of the regular season, they've lost Devin Larson, but you think that they're going to make a run?
I do. I think that they have a good chance to make a run, and I think a big part of it is because of the defense. They have a rock-solid defense, and another thing is they were really beat up the past couple of weeks, Devin Larson included, but it seems like Ryan Dobbs should be back, their top wide receiver. That's a new weapon for Trey Reynolds, their quarterback, that's stepping in for Larson. Reynolds also plays linebacker. He also plays running back. So a lot of teams are going to see a completely different Queen Creek offense coming from that. It'll be more of a read option. And I think that the physicality, should they be able to get through CDO, I think that matches up well against Pinnacle. So I could see them making a run deeper than most anticipate. And these 3 losses, it's against the number 1, the number 3, and the number 5 teams in the state. So I think that really does some favors for them as well. So on your end for 6A, number 5 Highland, have they seen a true test here in 6A this season? Maybe not. Big win over Queen Creek. They beat a good Desert Vista team. State your case for the Highland Hawks.
I feel like we need to make this whole state your case thing a little bit more exciting. So our next
State your case!
Our next one will get a little bit more exciting. Okay. Yeah, I picked Highland as my bold prediction last week. We had Cam Cox on, and he kind of was like, hey, I'll make my bold prediction if you guys make yours. So on the fly, I've been talking about this Highland team all year. Was out at a practice, been out to a game. Really like what they've got going. Key here is Connor Collimore. He can run the ball. He's unbelievable on defense. Daniel Wood also in that rushing core. He's unbelievable too. He's got some wheels. And then Caleb Herbert, obviously at quarterback, he has a way of finding those receivers deep, and he can run the ball if he has to too. I think the game I was at, he had like a 50-yard touchdown run. So I did make that bold prediction. I'm sticking with this. I'm not necessarily saying that Highland is going to take it all. I said on AZ Audibles this week that I think this division is up in the air. But I do think that Highland has made a strong case for themselves. Yes, maybe they haven't played a crazy good 6A team. I think Queen Creek was a good test for them. I think that was a good game, and it proved some stuff for them. And they did be a good Desert Vista team. I've seen that team as well. So they've made somewhat of a case. I think the playoffs will be the true test, obviously, and we'll see what they can do.
Case stated. Oh, I covered that
subtle.
one.
I like that.
Yeah.
Not as deafening. Let's move into 5A. Number 5 Higley outscored opponents 106-42 in those Santan region games against Williamsfield and Castile. Jordan, I don't have any symbols, but state your case.
Okay. So they didn't show up in those 2 games. Let's just get it out there. They didn't show up against Williamsfield. They didn't show up against Castile. They got beat up. But this team is so talented, and when you have a senior quarterback that's been around a bit like Spencer Brash, I have to think that he's going to be able to help rally the troops offensively. You have Coleman Owen, who is a go-to wide receiver. Anything, as I've said, in the zip code, he'll catch it. And then that defensive line is so good. If they can come together and focus up, I feel like that they can make a deep run. And when we look, let's assume that both favorites win in the first round. That means that they would rematch Castile in the second round. What did we see last year from Higley? In the regular season, they kind of got beat up by Saguaro, but then when they played them again in the postseason,
I was there for that one.
You were at that game. It was an overtime loss, but the game was very different. So I think getting another crack at Castile, I think this could be a very different game for the Higley Knights.
And then we've got on the other... I can't.
Okay, so we have Marana now. Higley, Haley, number 9, Marana. They're taking on Cienega on Friday. Lost to them in the regular season. A tough road because if they win that game, then it's presumed they would face number 1 Centennial. State your case.
So
Ms.
with this one, you mentioned how Higley played Saguaro last year in the regular season. Wasn't super close, but then in the playoffs it was. Could foresee that with this one with Cienega and Marana. We're going to get into this game deeper later. We'll have head coach Pat Nugent from Cienega coming on with us. But Marana beat Ironwood Ridge earlier this season. And Ironwood Ridge just took a really close one against Cienega. So the way this one is matched up is pretty exciting. Marana's been a little bit battle tested. They have had a couple injuries. We had Trenton Bourget on earlier this season. We talked about the Bourget brothers kind of tearing it up for the Tigers. They both had, or all three of them have had really great season. I think there's a lot of components to look out for Marana on both sides of the ball. But as I said, we're going to look more into this game with head coach Pat Nugent later in the show. I do think Marana is going to come out strong here in these playoffs.
All right, my turn.
Okay. 4A, number 12, Glendale. Kind of a pretty strong top 4 team this year in 4A. And Glendale played 2 playoffs teams all year in number 14, Walden Grove, and number 16, Apache Junction.
So, where would they be if they were undefeated? They lost a close one to Apache Junction. My guess is they'd be a 5 or a 6 in there, but since they lost, went 9-1, dropped all the way down to 12. This is a team that hasn't seen the best of the best, but one thing that Eric Sorensen told me when he saw them in Week 10 was that offensive line is huge. And we've seen Kevin Daniels, the running back, just run wild behind them. So I think that in 4A, if you can build a team around that run game, control the possessions, control the clock, I think that they could potentially make a run as a double-digit seed on the year. He has 1,700 yards, 32 rushing touchdowns, 600 receiving yards, and 5 more touchdowns. So you have an experienced offensive line. It seems like this group kind of came up together. They've been building for this moment. It's been a while since they've been in the postseason. I think they aren't going to take that for granted and try to make a run.
On my side...
Are you tired of me yet?
No.
Okay.
This is great.
All right. So, 4A. For you, number 5, Tucson Saguaro. We're going to this is going to be a first...
The other side of this matchup.
Yeah, so it's going to be Glendale, going to be Saguaro, at Saguaro. One of 2 teams to hold number 1 Salpointe Catholic to a 2-touchdown margin. But we've seen they've played 2 or 3 postseason teams.
Yep.
Went 2-1 against them. State thine case, Stasiak.
Are you going to symbol me? I don't want to be surprised by it. I'm just going to.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm looking at this because of that margin that they held Salpointe to. The only other team to hold Salpointe to a close margin like that was number 3 seed Desert Edge. So just the ability of Saguaro to kind of have that kind of test, the litmus test there, as we talked about before the show, that's what I'm keeping an eye on here. And Saguaro's a run-heavy team led by Cameron Williams, so I have a feeling that Glendale's defense is going to be tested there with Cameron Williams coming out of the backfield. Case stated. All right, in 3A, to wrap things out here, number 9, Ben Franklin. Tough road for them. They're opening up against number 8, Wickenburg, who is 8-2. Then they would presumably get number 1, Northwest Christian. They've already beat the Chargers this year. Golden monkey symbols. Stay your case.
They've played a really tough schedule so far. They're 6-4 on the year. They beat Snowflake 14-8. Close game to Sabino, another playoff team. So Wickenburg is a very tough out, certainly. But Danner Bowen is finally healthy, so he's back. And my guy, Andy Luberta, made the prediction at the beginning of the year that they would take the 3A state title. I don't know if I'll go that bold, but I think they could make a run and face off against obviously a very tough #1 Northwest Christian. I think that they could be positioned just for the matter of finally getting healthy at the right time. They're a little more dangerous than your typical 9 seed.
Mm-hmm.
I always forget at the end now. Okay. Haley, on your end, #5, Valley Christian. You saw them get beat by #1 Northwest Christian.
I did.
Go ahead and state your case.
Okay. So the thing here with Valley Christian is they run kind of a unique offense with 2 quarterbacks in Peyton Hansel and Vinny Legata, who is a junior. They run that kind of halfback pass type play, and Legata can run. I spoke with Northwest Christian head coach David Innes after that game, and I asked him kind of, how do you plan for that kind of weird offense that they run? And they run it quite a bit, and he said that they watched on film Legata, and they weren't expecting him to run quite as fast as he did in person. He's much faster on the field than on the film. So that was one thing that stood out to Innes. And when you watch Legata run, I mean, he is fast. He's just got that speed down the line. So watching that, Matt McCrate in the receiving core, obviously he's a standout there for the Trojans as well. So I think Valley Christian does have a chance. I think we talked earlier about last year, Higley and Suaro in that tough playoff game playing in the regular season. And then we talk about how Marana and Cienega played in the regular season in our meeting here in this first round of the playoffs. If Valley Christian, Northwest Christian potentially meet up somewhere in here, could be an upset.
Just kidding. I have one more point to make. They also played a lot of kind of the top 8 teams
They did, yeah.
in 3A. Kind of a mixed bag between those, but they are the battle-tested team
Sure.
in 3A. So collective case stated. I love how far you're leaning away now when I do that.
It's loud.
Okay.
Coming up next on the Friday Night 360AZ preview show on this Halloween edition, we're going to have Basha head coach Chris McDonald. Keep it right here.